Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Let's talk about getting it right the first time, right? Nobody wants to go through the review process. Nobody wants to do a higher level review. Nobody wants to do a supplemental claim. Nobody for sure wants to send it to the Board of Veterans Appeals. It all takes time, and what we need is the decision made correctly the first time. The way I look at this is make it as easy as possible for the VA to rule in your favor. It's kind of like back in the day when you had to write your own review, right? Here's your NCOER. Go ahead, fill it out, and give it to me. I'll give it a glance over, then I'll sign it, right? It's kind of like that. The more that we can give the VA to rule in our favor, the better. The more that we are prepared in that process, the better, because it'll make it easier in the C&P exam because we know what they're looking for. I'm just going to dive into this a little bit, share this information with you. And look, I get it. The majority of you watching already know this stuff because you're watching. I'm hoping that we can get this information out to others. Remember that 70% of veterans are not connected with the VA for disability compensation. Now, that's a big number. And if you take the 30% that are, a lot of them don't really understand even how they got there. So there's a small percentage, and I believe it's the people that watch not just my channel, but other channels out there that are providing great information. All right, so with that, let's jump into it. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. The two asks, right? Hit the thumbs up. Stand in the background for those that can hear them. Hit the thumbs up. Let the video run. Those two things help YouTube push this information out. And look, if you want to support in other ways, consider being a member. You can do that by going to the home page. You'll see the highlighted members and a join button. Thank you so much. All right, so let's jump into it. The number one first thing that you should do is file your intent to file. Preserves the time so you can actually document everything and do it appropriately. Now, all of the information is out there for you. It's a bit cumbersome, I get it. But the thing that I always look back to is treat this like it's $1 million or potentially, depending on your age, a multi-million-dollar deal. Because it is. So put the time in. When you look at the disability compensation amount that you could receive, you look at the longevity of how long that could last with the COLAs and all that stuff added into it. I know it's not much, sore subject. And you look at the cost of medical care that you would be able to push over to VA. It is a substantial number. So you got to treat it that way and do some homework. All right. So number one is you have your intent to file in. That's the 0996. Oh, geez. Now I almost forgot. Let me think. All right. 0966. Flipping sixes and nines. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. 210966. That is the intent to file, and that is the form that you'll need. And just get that. You can call the VA directly, let them know. You can Google search intent to file, all of that stuff, and get that form. The bottom line is that that's going to buy you time and preserve your effective date, which is important. So now, what do you need to get it right the first time? Well, I'm going to walk you through what I would suggest anybody to do if they're filing a claim for the first time. And it could be a new claim that you're filing for a service-connected claim, or it could be this is the first time that I'm ever filing anything with the VA. All right. This is going to exclude presumptives. I might chime in a little bit on presumptives. Presumptives are a much easier path, so I don't really tend to focus on that one. So service connection. So here you are. You should put in the intent to file, number one. Number two, you should go through your medical records, your service treatment records, if you have any. If you do not have them, then you should order them with the SF-180 form. SF-180, order your service treatment records, get those. Once they show up, start thumbing through them. Anything that you have documented during your time in service, whether it's just a mention in some medical notes somewhere, or if it's a diagnosis, right? Anything, even a self-attesting of something. There are forms out there during your annual physical health assessment or your exit health assessment where you will self-attest to certain things. So essentially, the form will look or have verbiage in there that says something to the effect of, have you now or have you ever experienced any of the following? And it might have 50 different things. It could say, have you ever had cancer? Have you ever had heart problems, back, painful swollen joints, migraines, heartburn, tuberculosis, this, that, whatever, right? It just goes on and on and on. And you're checking yeses and nos, right? So everything that you said yes to, you're supposed to make a little notation of explain further in the block below, and you'll write whatever sentence in because you didn't know how important this was going to be later. So you did that. Then on the next page or the next page, a physician's assistant or a doctor or somebody with a medical prowess signs that, right? Typically it's going to be like an 04, maybe an 05 is going to sign off on that form typically. Could be somebody lower ranked, but typically that's who it is. And it really doesn't matter because it's a medical certifying official who's certifying that form as a piece of medical evidence. Now, even at the lowest level of you just mentioning it in your service treatment records on a self-attesting form like that is really the foundation of a nexus, which is really important, okay? So you want to order those records and look for anything you can find in there regarding any conditions that you have today. The three, we'll call it pillars, that you need to accomplish for the VA, we'll set that stage and then we'll start building the blocks. Time and service, right? You need evidence of that. That's going to be your DD-214 or DD-214s, right? Depending on how long you've been in. And you are going to need to have a diagnosed condition. That diagnosed condition, by the way, does not need to have come from your time in service. Your diagnosis can be 10, 15, 20 years later. It doesn't matter when the diagnosis was. You do need to be diagnosed for a condition. Third, you need to have a nexus, a link between the condition and your time in service. What the VA is looking for here is show me that your condition manifested during your time in service or as a result of your time in service some way, right? Or if you're filing for a secondary, it'd be show me that it's tied to your secondary. So this is what they're looking for, okay? So now you are gathering your medical records, your service treatment records. You're going through those. You're looking for anything that you are either A, diagnosed for, or you could go get diagnosed for today. Let's say migraines. Let's say you checked the box that said migraine headaches. Let's say that you're not diagnosed for them. You self-diagnosed, right? Doesn't mean anything for VA purposes. So you need to go get diagnosed by a doctor for your migraines. But you have it listed in your medical records. Important. Helps you build that nexus. So you're going to do that and start building that evidence, working with your doctor. Now, what sort of conversation should you be having with your doctor about your service-connected potential conditions, right? Well, you should be focused on not only what you need to help you with your condition, but also what the VA is going to be looking for in order to rate you. Do yourself a favor. Go into your service treatment records, go into the disability rating schedules, the ECFR, or you could just Google search rating schedule for your condition, and it might show up on lawyer websites where they extract that information and put it on there. It's a little easier to digest. But in any case, find that information, the rating schedule for your condition. Read through it, and if you can ascertain where you fall in that rating schedule, then you should be having that conversation and having your doctor embed that information into your medical file, into your notes, all of that stuff. So now you know what the VA is looking for on the schedule of ratings for your condition. Do this for all your conditions. For your conditions, you know, okay, I got 5 conditions. I found my 5 conditions in the rating schedule. I printed out where I think I fall on each one of those. I'm having those conversations with my doctor. I have evidence from my time in service. Ideally, if you don't have evidence from your time in service, then you need to build a bridge back for the nexus piece, right? You have diagnosis for your 5 conditions. You have, let's say, evidence of 3 of those conditions is in your service treatment records. The other 2 are not. we'll just say. Whatever those other two are, if you feel as though those conditions manifested during your time in service and you just didn't annotate it, or you feel as though it was due to your time in service for some reason, right? Let's use the firefighting foam that's been talked about with PFAS, or if you're a K2 veteran with the uranium issues at that location, and you have ailments that are resulting because of that. Although they're not presumptive today, there are studies that point to it's at least likely as not, or it's more than likely that that condition is a result from that type of exposure. And if you can prove I was at K2, or you can prove that you were utilizing the firefighting foam with the PFAS, then you can have that conversation with your doctor and have them write you a nexus letter. Okay. Now, let's say that you can't leverage your MOS or your duty location or any of that type of stuff or certain exposures. Let's say that it's migraines that you never annotated during your time in service. Well, something like migraines is kind of an easier one because migraines are often just kind of dealt with by yourself with over-the-counter treatment. Anything that you can treat over-the-counter to a normal person would look at that and go, well, no wonder you never mentioned it because you just self-treated and you knew kind of what it was. So it makes sense that you didn't mention it during your time in service. Now, you are going to need to write a statement about that. You're going to need to have, ideally, people that you served with write a statement. Oh, yeah, I experienced, veteran so-and-so have migraines like, oh, geez, it seems like 2-3 times a week or whatever it is, and have them write a letter attesting to their knowledge of you suffering from that ailment, in this example, migraines. A family member would be great, somebody who knew you before, during, and after your time in service, never had issues before. It wasn't until they came home on leave that one time when I noticed, and now ever since has been, right? And having that type of a letter, all of this stuff becomes what's called lay evidence and will help you support the nexus, proving to the VA that your condition is at least as likely as not, which is the VA's threshold. If evidence is in equipoise, they're supposed to rule in your favor. So you're providing them all of this evidence, okay, for the service connection piece. You're utilizing the schedule of ratings to really hone in on the appropriate rating. So not only are you giving them the information they need for your service connection, you're also giving them the information you need for the appropriate rating. Those two things are really important. Now, as you're gathering all of this stuff, the letters from you, letters from people that you served with, a letter from a spouse, documentation from your time in service, highlighting the different ailments that you complained about or that you got diagnosed for, the things that you were not diagnosed for, or you have no documentation during your time in service, and you're relying on those statements as your nexus, you're going to want to work with your doctor to obtain a nexus letter. A nexus letter is great. You can have your doctor write the nexus letter for you. You can help them with that. You can embed into that nexus letter the verbiage of it's at least as likely as not, or preferably it is more than likely that the veteran suffers this condition due to their exposure to X, or due to their time in service, or whatever the correct verbiage needs to be. And also the snapshot of what the VA is looking for with regard to a rating. Do you meet all the criteria for a 50% rating for migraines? If so, have that doctor embed that into the nexus letter. That will help the VA rater understand the severity of your migraines, that you rate this amount based on the rating schedule and your doctor confirms it. This is all important information, and it should be basically just doubling down on all the other information, your own statements from others, that type of stuff, should all kind of culminate into this nexus letter that kind of encapsulates all of that in a nice, clear, and concise fashion. DBQs, disability questionnaires, are they important? Sure. But I caution, because look, what is a DBQ? It's a blank form. Doesn't mean anything until there's words on it. Once there's words on it, now it means something. It could either be good, it could be bad, it could be in the middle. So you need to absolutely work with your doctor, because the doctor, if it's a civilian doctor, does not know what the VA is looking for with regard to information on a DBQ. I mean, obviously, there's the question, right? Here's a question. Okay, here's my answer. But if the doctor knows, here's the rating schedule that they're looking at, and they're looking for that my condition is service connectable, meaning that it is at least as likely as not to have manifested or is due to my time in service in some way or fashion, right? If they understand the rating schedule and that they're looking for the at least as likely as not, then the doctor can look through it with that lens and put the appropriate information in there for you. Work with your doctor to have them completed appropriately. Now that you have all of that information, you could file your claim. Seems like a lot of work, but you're really painting the picture for the rater and the VA. And you are super prepared because you were actively involved in the process. Now, when you get called up for your C&P exam, C&P is compensation and pension exam, the VA is going to most likely schedule this for you. Even though you've submitted a fully developed claim, including a DBQ, they will often still set up a C&P exam. You're going to go to this exam, and you are going to be ready to answer the questions for that specific condition. I highly suggest print out the information that you have from the schedule of ratings regarding your condition and the rating in which you believe you should be rated for, so you can articulately be able to reference that in an appropriate way, so that way the C&P examiner can then answer their questions appropriately, so the VA rater has an easier time approving your condition service connected at the appropriate rating level. It's going to take the pressure off because you're going to be prepared. If you feel weird showing up, right, with a piece of paper, and you have your piece of paper and you're ready to read from it, if that feels weird to you, just start off the conversation that way. Hey, thanks for making it in. Have a seat there. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. I did bring some notes. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Is that okay? And they're going to be like, yeah, that's fine. Whatever. They don't care. But it again, now it just kind of you want to be calm. So you don't want to be stressed out with your shoulders up by your ears. And then you can reference it. You can make sure you don't miss things, right? In some, not all, but in some ratings, it's a matter of your words, right? If you miss a couple words on your signs and symptoms, it's the difference between a 10 to a 30 or a 30 to a 50, migraine specifically. So with that, I hope that this helped to kind of shed a little light on the process, what you could do up front to make it an easier process through, set yourself up for that C&P exam, and because you've been actively involved and you know what the VA is looking for, and taking notes to take with you there will make that process easier. I hope that it helps kind of give you some sort of an idea of how that whole progression works. In the event that you go all the way through, the VA adjudicates your claim, and they come back with an unfavorable decision. Unfavorable could mean a couple different things. Typically, there's the big three that we look at with unfavorable: complete denial of service connection, or a low rating, right? They underrated you, or they did not give you the appropriate back pay. Okay, those would be the three unfavorable kind of decisions that you would need to rectify. So usually it'll be one of the first two, which is either no service connection or they gave you a lower rating. In the event that that does happen, you could have two options. You really have three. You could go straight to the board if you want. Not usually suggested, just because of the immense time lag there. The other two are a review at the VA's level, which is a higher level review. If you feel as though you've given them everything that they need, you can request a higher level review and check the box that says informal conference and have a conversation with a higher level reviewer regarding your adjudicated claim decision and where you think that they went kind of sideways, right? And point them in the right direction, showing them that you did provide the evidence that would warrant a X, whatever it is, service connection or a higher rating. Or if you feel as though doubling down and giving some more evidence would be helpful, you can file the supplemental claim. You can go back to your doctor, have them write another letter, get a little more information, because the VA is going to let you know why they ruled the way they did. If they gave you a lower rating, they're going to say because you didn't supply enough evidence for the next rating higher. Well, go back to your doctor and say, hey doc, I really want to double down on my signs and symptoms here. The VA is really looking for this information. Can we really make sure that we get this encapsulated into my medical records as well as in a letter from you? Get that and submit that and do a supplemental claim. With that, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.